The Doctor Who New Year's Day 2019 special promised to be one of the most dramatic episodes of this series, with Jodie Whittaker at the helm as the Chibnall storyline saw the Daleks return. Chibnall also promised that this special was going to be epic, but did it fulfil all these promises sufficiently? Well, I'd argue it made a very good stab at it. It says a lot about Resolution, the Doctor Who's first ever New Year's Day special overrides the usual opening titles to launch us straight into the action. A pacey and atmospheric opening rattles through all the backstory we need as a monstrous force is overpowered and torn apart, scattered in pieces across the planet. Even if I did feel this section was a little drawn out, some opening credits would have been nice. This did feel very epic, to quote Chris Chibnall. I felt very different from conventional Who episodes. Although I wasn't entirely keen on the massive intertitles that played out every time we jumped between the burial sites. And when I say massive, I honestly mean they filled the entire screen. It was just a bit much, that is all. One thing that must be commended immediately is the fantastic visuals that can be seen throughout the episode, from the recurring, totally awesome time vortex to the magnificent TARDIS materialisations. It all looks fantastic and is a welcome sight from previous years of dodgy CGI. Resolution was promised to be action-packed, and to say it doesn't let up on the promise is an understatement. The special effects team certainly had their work cut out in this episode, from the scene when the car was drifting all over the road to the scene where the Dalek got exterminating those soldiers. All that can be said is that it certainly looked epic, and that I had no problem with the execution. Credit must also go to director Wayne Yip, who provided a very fresh feel, and helped this episode be a bit more special and stand out. His direction felt very different from what we received in Series 11. But this totally is not a bad thing, and if anything, it helped it to be a bit more distinctive. If it wasn't for Yip, this episode would have gone down an entire notch for me. One nice little touch I noticed early on with this Dalek, once back inside the casing, was the gun sound effect. It's the sound that first debuted in Remembrance of the Daleks, and man do I love it. Additionally, it was very cool to see a Dalek actually exterminating people for a change, as in previous Dalek stories this has definitely been lacking, and it's what makes them so threatening, so it was a great sight. It makes sense in terms of the canon. If this was really one of the first Daleks, then it would resonate more closely to the Daleks of the past, as opposed to those in recent years. For this, I must commend Chibnall a lot. It's precision and small touches like this that makes this episode that bit more special than just a regular Dalek adventure, and really gets the fans on board.
Allocated surrender period has expired. Consequence extermination.
In terms of the unit/Brexit jib made during the Doctor's phone call, it looks as if the classic task force is now being disbanded, and I'm sure many other fans of the show, like me, will be very miffed if we never see them again. By the looks of it, if dialogue in this episode is to be taken as fact, that very well might be the case. I am, however, glad that we didn't see the Doctor rely on Unit in this episode, and she was instead able to overcome the threat through her own intuition. There is also a really great score from Segan Akinola present here once again. There are moments where he was really subtle and really exemplified the on-screen action perfectly, although there were also moments where he was certainly very bombastic, and I totally loved it. I especially enjoyed the newly updated Dalek theme, which was certainly a highlight for me. I really cannot wait for the Series 11 soundtrack to come out. I think it's going to be a belter. Credit must also go to Charlotte Ritchie for her performance as a sort of human Dalek, just managing to stay on the right side of comedy when she's spouting Dalek catchphrases in a part that could have well veered into farce rather quickly. Nicholas Briggs, long-time voice of the Daleks, also does a great job in this segment of the episode, creating a new, less staccato and more unique take on how the species talks that oozes with malice, arrogance and contempt. It provides a very fresh feel to the Dalek speech, especially in the scenes where it is without its casing and controlling Lynn, which just felt so new and original, which is something I don't think I could say about the Dalek episodes we received in the Stephen Moffat era.
I am your pilot now. Do not fight me. I have control of your body. All brain and motor functions are under my power.
It must be said, however, that I wasn't really a fan of the cobbled-together Dalek design. It was more like a fan's take on a Dalek, and I wasn't a fan of the rockets coming out of the bottom section, as this doesn't really make an ounce of sense. I am very aware of the fact that this isn't a redesign. Instead, it is a design put together for a one-off, and for that reason alone, it is effective. Although I'm not entirely sure how the out-of-casing Dalek found all those spare parts and was able to construct them all together so quickly. Considering how Ritchie's character, Lynn, was collapsed on the floor when the Doctor and the team arrive, this just felt a bit clunky to me. Also, there was this very weird scene where we cut away from the central plot and where the main action is taking place to see the effect that the Dalek is having on the UK. In a previous scene, the Doctor explains how this Dalek is a reconnaissance scout, and it is more advanced than many other Daleks. She also explains how the Dalek, having arrived at the GCHQ, or Government Communications Headquarters, is using all of the Wi-Fi and other similar signals to try and contact the Dalek fleet, sitting somewhere in space, we presume. We cut away for this scene with a family where they discover the Wi-Fi has gone down and then they must have a conversation. And I must say, I really didn't like this scene. It really just takes a joke already established by Ryan's dialogue when he called the Dalek a monster for tampering with the internet and sucker punches it entirely. Essentially, by reinstating and trying to further emphasise the joke, it ironically lost all of its emphasis. It also just felt unnecessary from Chibnall, especially in a script where we already had enough of a subplot with Ryan's dad to already contend with, and just sidelines the main plot with the Dalek, where the episode really should be focusing on. This was a massive negative for me. However, that first scene between the Doctor and the newly reconstructed Dalek was the scene we've all been waiting for. All of Series 11, in fact. Jodie Whittaker's 13th Doctor finally facing an opponent of decent threat, and of course the first time a new incarnation of the Doctor meets the Daleks is always iconic, even if the scene did feel like it was ripping off Series 1's Dalek with Christopher Eccleston a tiny bit. Nevertheless, Jodie excels in this scene and finally gets some dialogue and interaction with an enemy, enough to make the blood boil, and man does it show. She is really on fire in this scene and just highlights how good she can be when faced against an enemy of a significant calibre. I particularly enjoyed the line, "Oh mate, I'm the Doctor, ring any bells?" which I felt Jodie delivered expertly. Another great touch is when we adopt the Dalek's perspective via the visualizer once again, a trend starting with the first Doctor and the Dalek invasion of Earth and still continued here. Wayne Yip certainly uses it to his advantage when directing also, and it really emphasises the on-screen conflict between the Doctor and the Dalek excellently, and for me is one of the best scenes of the episode. No, Resolution wasn't a perfect story, but it was certainly a good Dalek story, and I had a lot of fun with it. It allowed the classic villain to return in a unique manner, and for this Chibnall must be commended, but it definitely fell short at a couple of hurdles. If there's some more stakes established, as in they could have killed off someone more significant than just soldiers, then this episode would have improved tenfold. Nevertheless, it wasn't the traditional Dalek story, and this helped to make it one of the more special than in previous years. Arguably, it was just what we needed after the trials and tribulations of Series 11, but I still can't help but see significant flaws with Chibnall's scripts, which I do find a bit worrying for the future. Anyway, time will certainly tell. It usually does. The Doctor Will Return plays out just after the closing theme, and signals the beginning of a long hiatus until Series 12 in early 2020. Strap yourselves in, we're in for a long wait now. Overall, I give this episode a 7.5.